Hello everyone and welcome back to Hattons. It's me, Jack, here today, and I'm very kindly joined by Jenny Kirk and Les Cliff from Team Railriders on the Great Model Railway Challenge Season 2. How are you guys?
I'm good, thank you.
Very good, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, no worries at all. And we're going to be looking back at the final episode of Season 2, which just aired on Saturday. So, what did you guys think of the final?
It was really tough. I think you'll probably agree with me on that.
Very close.
As each level has gone through on this, the competition has really upped their game, and we've had to try and keep up with that. I think we did all right.
Absolutely, you guys put on an impressive display there, and some eagle eye viewers might have actually noticed myself and Dave from Platform 1 actually snuck about there in the audience as well, so you might have seen us behind the scenes a few times. So it really was a heart-forward final, wasn't it? Everyone put their A game into it, and there was some incredible layouts on display too, wasn't there?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I have to say, you're obviously very focused on what you're building, but you can't ignore what's going on around you. So it's really impressive to see how other two teams of modelers handled the brief and actually put together their models. It's really great to see other people and their modelling game.
Absolutely.
I mean, what did you think?
They were all excellent. They were all brought their game right up to the top level, and the way that they'd all interpreted it in different ways, they were very good indeed.
That's it. So viewers in this episode might have noticed that they actually combined 3 different layouts together from across the show. Yeah. So of course your original fantastic War of the Worlds layout, which you can see more about in a special YouTube video on our channel as well, was combined with your Halloween layout from your semi-final, and of course your Austin Powers themed layout for the final as well. So was that quite tricky getting all those linked up to work together?
Yeah, I mean, we knew in advance that was going to be how it had to go if you got through to the final. So one of the things that was in all the designs was very precisely having the track exit one board and match up to go across to another. So we knew that it had to do that, but I think we left it till very last minute to actually do it.
We did. We ran out of time. I felt we ran out of time with quite a bit of our layout. I'd thought that we would have had one of the boards brought in so that we could work on the transient sort of joining from the War of the Worlds into the Halloween and the Halloween into the final layout. But they weren't brought in until the very last minute, so we didn't really get time to do the kind of effects that I wanted to do. I wanted to build on the War of the Worlds when I wanted to build a bit of a mountainside with a tunnel that would then link into the Halloween one, where it came out through the mouse hole.
Right.
Didn't really get round to doing that. We literally ran out of time. It was a case of having to get it all joined up. And likewise, we had a little bit of an issue with the end of the Halloween joining onto the Austin Powers. Excuse me, because the door, we hadn't quite figured out that the door, because it was meant to be open, we had to alter the way the door was opening because it was fouling up how it would join the other layout. So there was a little bit of a, not panic as such, but well, there was a bit of panic trying to get that sorted out so that we could then make it look like the train had come through the doorway and into the rock face. So we had got ideas how we wanted it, but I'd hoped that it would have been set a little bit earlier in the challenge, at the beginning of that day rather than at the end of the day, really.
It's just another thing thrown in there to add to the challenge, isn't it? Just to spice things up, really. And
I think when everybody who made their heat layouts and their semi-final layouts, you had to really concentrate on the build in front of you, because I think I've said before, if you started to think about what you were going to do next time if you got through, you just couldn't afford to waste that time thinking about it. You had to put it out of your mind and just concentrate on that build. So when it came to actually deliver, putting them all together, I think all 4 teams struggled a little bit. There was different solutions, but it did feel quite a lot.
I noticed on is it the Who Counts Rivet? They actually had like a joining section rather than the boards having to come right up to each other. There was which I thought was quite clever, because it meant that you didn't have to worry about fiddling, getting joins and things.
Exact placement right as well.
Having a little 6-inch piece of track that was in like a tube or something like that, it worked very, very easily. But we got it all joined and
we got there in the end, and the train ran through pretty much faultlessly. I think the only issues we had with derailing was actually a filming issue, because they kept asking us to run the train backwards to then bring it out so they could reposition the cameras. And it was annoying because we knew that the train would work the way that it was supposed to go across the thing. But there was some dodgy track work that we just inherited. It was on the board that we were given for the Halloween one. So there was nothing we could do about it. And it meant when you reversed a train to reset, they'd come off the track. So apart from that niggle, it actually worked.
It's the perils of TV, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
The different filming that you need to get done.
Yeah.
But so we will have seen, obviously, your War of the Worlds layout earlier in the show, and of course Halloween as well. So could you talk us through a little bit about the Austin Powers layout or how that came together?
We had this initial idea, and it was probably around the time that we started designing the Halloween layout. We knew that we also had to provide a plan for what we would build if we got through to the final. And because, like with the Halloween layout, we were quite late to the party, so a lot of the themes that we suggested had already been taken by other teams. Cool. And it's not just the teams we were up against. We also had to contend with the fact that everybody from the semi-finals had a layout idea approved if they got through. So there were themes that didn't get built, but we were nonetheless told we couldn't have. But we had this idea of, we had to think big, we had to think really out of this world, and we thought, having a mountain that was so huge that you needed a stepladder to actually see the top of it, we thought, how can people fail to notice a layout that is that huge? And the idea of this Austin Powers volcano lair just really, I think, leapt out of us.
I wasn't familiar with Austin Powers. It wasn't a genre.
I had to lend you the DVDs.
I had to lend me the DVD to watch it and everything. So it was totally alien to me. But, I was on board with the idea at the end. So,
I suppose that might have almost helped as well, because you would have brought a fresh perspective to it, being a new-time viewer. And then obviously with fans of the film there as well.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of sort of the gimmicky kind of storylines I didn't know anything about until I'd watched, about the Jaguar and the rockets and all the people that are in there. Yeah. So we tried to put in a number of the elements from the film, didn't we?
And I think with all of these, you've got to bear in mind, you've got to keep it deliverable. You've got a 2 and a little bit day window to build it from scratch. I mean, it was just a bare baseboard. Yeah. And that's a big ask. So there's some things that if we'd have had more time, we would have certainly done. But we knew that they were really big on animations. So we were trying to get a few key things in there. And we tried to do things that had not been done on the series and none of the other teams would do. And I think we managed that.
One of the key features I tried to do is to create the face on the rock, where he's sort of sucking his finger or something.
The classic pose, isn't it?
It's very difficult to get the angle because it's quite distorted when you look at the rock face. So I played around with a marigold glove, and I'd filled that with masking tape to begin with and stuffed it at home. I just tried an idea to see if that would work, but it wouldn't sort of stay into place. And then I thought, well, why not put the marigold glove on and plaster your hand up with the mod rock? So that's what I did. So, the problem was with the TV company, they wanted you to show everything that you were doing, and I needed to get this hand done early on. Yeah. So I'd actually done the hand, and I was sitting there waiting, like an idiot with my hand in a funny position. And the TV company said, "You're going to have to do that again because we haven't filmed you doing it." So I literally had to break it and start it again.
Oh no!
So I did manage to cut through it, and one we had to stand and be filmed. Yeah. I've got my hand behind my back because I'm still half covered in plaster.
See, I told the director, I said, make him plaster his other hand up. He's going to have to walk around like this.
But that idea then, I did manage to get it. It didn't go quite to plan because mod rock doesn't quite set the same on your hand as it does if you go into the hospital and have proper plaster bandage put around you. It doesn't give you quite that kind of hardness. But we managed to get the face, which again was a polystyrene mannequin head, which we sliced in half and then drilled out where one of the eyes was so that Melanie could do the electronics. But the difficulty is always you've got one person that needs to do one part to a particular part of the structure, and somebody else is trying to do the artistic part, and it's knowing
it's all got to meld together, hasn't it?
Yeah. And we got the electronics to work because Moan did a fantastic job with a little eye, which was a tennis ball.
Yeah, it was like a ping pong
ball. And a good friend of mine, Sue Matthews, she painted up a series of little Austin Powers figures, Mini-Me, and
Dr. Evil.
And the lady, whatever she's called.
Frau Verbissner, is it?
I think so, yeah.
So we've got the little figures in the eye and everything. We've got it all fixed onto the mountain, and we started to do all the plaster work and everything, but we had to be wary that we only had a limited amount of mod rock. So we were starting to run out a little bit towards the end.
Especially when you had two hands that are completed.
But I brought some of my own, and Simon had brought some as well, but from our sort of supplies, there was a limited amount. And I mean, the others may not agree with me, but I still feel I didn't quite finish off that face because there's only got the one eye at the moment. The other eye wasn't really formed.
Les is a perfectionist, and all the way through this, we had to keep sort of dragging him off the model and go, no, Les, peak excellence has been achieved, you don't need to add any more.
I suppose it's nice to have people who are, like yourself, a perfectionist and want to take the time with the models, but a few more quicker models too.
In one way, but I mean, I'm an impressionist as well, so perfection and impressionism can go together as long as it looks right. And it doesn't look too bad, but I know in my heart that it needed a little bit more doing.
I think it was amazing.
One of the things that they don't tend to show very much in the film, well, we don't know quite yet, but we had a lot on the top of the volcano that the camera people struggled to get a view
I'm not surprised because it was huge. It was absolutely huge.
And one of the big problems that we faced through this is that the judges especially have this nasty habit of going, we want to see it now, why is there nothing on your board? And because of the nature of it, and you had to wait for certain things to dry before you could do other things, a lot of ours took form from the second day. So on the first day, to the uninitiated, it probably looked like, what are they doing? There's nothing going on. But we were kind of laying the framework such that I think that evening, the first day evening, we finally got the volcano layer structure on and transformed it from this, what looked like somebody who was very bad at woodworking and tried to make a set of shelves and failed, and then turned that into the actual outside of the volcano and all the different layers inside. And I think that the judges are very much like, well, I can't see what they're doing. Oh, I'm going to mark this down because I can't see anything. And railway modelling quite often isn't like that. You don't get that instant gratification.
It's like the train people in their scratch build, where they were. I thought they should have gone through. They were very, very good, but part of their scratch build wasn't able to be seen until the final bit, and they were marked down because of it. But that's wrong.
I was going to say there was a few instances in the show where you will have seen that where it wouldn't have made sense until the final model came out. It's like with the other finalists who had, for their semi-final layout, the Camelot theme one with the rotating base, and it didn't really come together until the very end because there was no scene around. But they managed to get through with that, which very fairly so, I'd say, because it was such a impressive
very
idea,
wasn't it?
Something totally different, which we haven't seen. But it goes to show that sometimes there's an element of speed that you need to get in there, but sometimes it won't come together until the very end.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to say, you're going to have to wait and see. It's like, don't spoil your appetite by filling up on chocolate. The main meal will come and it will deliver, but you just got to have faith.
Don't fill up on bread, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we touched a little bit on your animations, and there was some really out there things that you managed to get in there. I can't remember the name of what it actually is, but inside the
Jacob's Ladder, is that
was unbelievable.
Well, it's one of the things that you see in all these sort of like spoof movies, but going right back to the old 1930s style horror movies, they always have
a B-movie style thing, isn't it?
You always have this sort of like spark that climbs two electrodes and goes bzzz, bzzz. And it's actually
very
called
Frankenstein-y, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's actually called a Jacob's Ladder, is the actual electronics behind it. And Marcia built that. And it was quite nervous to be around because you could imagine
I was scared to go near the thing a few times.
You didn't want to touch it, that's all I would say. But it really did produce this incredible effect. Tim is an electronics boffin, that's his hobby. and he was just like, he thought it was marvellous. But then on top of that as well, we also had the sharks in the tank. The freaking laser beams. The winking mask as well, with another biggie going on. But then there was a lot of other littler things as well.
The spiral where...
Oh, the time tunnel.
Time tunnel. But yes, again, my perfectionism, because of the lack of time, the front part where you can actually see the shark tank and everything, you can still see it. Basically, it's a Tupperware dish. Yeah. And that we hadn't got round to finishing off. But
melding in with the rest of the scene.
But I mean, with the time frame we had, I think we did pretty well.
Considering the size of some of the scenery on there.
We had the very clever use of a locomotive to open the top of the caldera.
So like because if you remember in the James Bond film, You Only Live Twice, the I want to call it Dr. Evil, Blofeld's hollowed out volcano lair. He has the crater that slides open, and what we thought was, wouldn't it be great if we extended the railway modelling theme to actually using a locomotive to push it? So
we were doing a bit like a Grantham there. We were using the locomotive that you couldn't really see to actually be part of the mechanism.
Just using the locomotive for an actual purpose. It's a tool, isn't it? Yeah.
And there was actually quite a lot of engineering that went into that, because Melanie made the actual crater floor, and there was like plastic wagon kits, just the chassis were cut up and glued on very precisely so it would roll on these two tracks, of which one was energised, and we put a Hornby Class 8 shunter. And I actually had to put a sound loco in because you couldn't see it at all. And what I was doing was to make sure that the loco was still working. You'd make it toot, you'd use the horn, and then I could just hear this little Class 8 shunter tooting up in the volcano, and I knew it had power. And then it just slid the crater open. But I guess that a lot of these ideas came together so late in the day because of the necessity of the order we had to build things. I don't think we got as much credit perhaps for them than we should. And there was
not sound great for anything, but no.
Oh no. But there was also we had the rockets that fired out through the crater as well. So there was a lot going on, and Austin Powers doing his 1,000-point turn, which was just it was the simplest of it was the simplest of animations. I used a Pico point motor and then drilled a hole in the little baggage tractor thing, glued it on, so then when we put 2 oil barrows and you just flicked the lever, it would flick backwards and forwards like he was trying to do this turn, like in the first film. So there was a lot going on, but I think because it came together at the end rather than sequentially, such that
you almost didn't get the chance to take it all in. I suppose.
And it's one of the limitations, I guess, of the format is that it's like we want everything now. We want to see things. And quite often with modelling, it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, that's it. So there really was immeasurable numbers of references on there, wasn't there? Like you're saying,
there was a bit of Jaws, because in the
we had the little fin that was chasing the guy on the surfboard. But then there was also we had the.
I built the Austin Powers jumbo jet.
Oh yeah, Shag Force 1,
which was suspended on a wire. It was going to be an animation, but in the end we just had to leave it suspended there. And basically it was a very simple animation of a piece of fishing wire held up on a post on one end and on the other, tied onto that. And then the idea was to just pull the wire at the one end, but it kept snagging. And again, because it wasn't put up until we had to join all these boards together, so it was all right as a hanging diorama, but it was meant to be a moving.
We had the guy with the fez as well, with the Rover car down the cliff, and it's like, I'm not dead yet.
And the bus with the
with the grand piano, where it's I forget what's the singer songwriter that they had, the very famous guy, and they're on the bus. There's just a grand piano on there. So Les had built that as well. Then we had all of the different characters, like Random Task was in there. We had the fembots. Fat, I'm not going to say his name, but everybody knows. So we'd actually got all these figures that we'd trolled all the way through the Prizer range and the Knock range, looking for figures that could be adapted into all the different characters. So they were all there, dotted around.
We also had a little bit of a funny story that started from the first heat that I don't think has been picked up in any of the interviews so far. Scarborough Flyers, when we were up against them, they took one of their camels, and along with Tim and the lady here, they hid it on the railway of the great model, the War of the Worlds.
Oh.
So right at the end, when Tim's talking to me about the realism and everything, he said, well, and he pulls out this camel, and you popped up from behind saying, sabotage, sabotage. So we decided that we would carry this camel right the way through the storyline, and whether we went out or not, we would pass it on to a team that went through.
Right.
So it does appear in our Halloween layout. It's in one of the wagons with all the creepy crawlies that's going around with the Ghost Percy train.
Yeah.
And then in the final, there's a little cameo scene where there's Tim and James and the camel at the firing squad. So we just carried on little comical things as well.
I think you can almost say that's in line with traditional modelling in a sense, because it's all about those little details and making little storylines within the layout, isn't it? So,
and I think those little cameos bring any layout to life. A little scene that says something, maybe a little sort of nod to some kind of film.
Well, like in the Halloween, we put a reference to the LP for the gentleman that did all the music for us and everything.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of references in that as well, even down to we had Beetlejuice underneath the thing. And unfortunately, I think it's the time constraints of the TV slot. Yeah. There's so much from all of the teams that there's just no space to get that out there. And they probably, I wouldn't like to be the guy who had to edit it, because quite frankly there was so much good stuff that they had to cut out that you can kind of understand why some of these things got dropped. It's just simply there was no time for it.
I think it just goes to show how amazing the layout is, though. With such a restricted time limit that you were able to do what you did despite all of that, really.
From nothing, from a
literally just bare wood.
Yeah.
So obviously commiserations on not winning the show, but you've made it an amazing way, and you've obviously had a great time doing it as well.
We don't feel we've lost.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I'll be honest, we said actually at the end
to get to the final was our...
Yeah, that was the prize for us, because when we did the Halloween layout, they said, what would winning really mean to you? And you said, to be honest, if we got through to the final, we'd feel that we'd done all right. To be in the final four.
That we said there's probably over 600 applicants for the competition initially. To get it narrowed down to 15 teams and to be one of the top 4 modelling teams, that's accolade.
Just to be on it in the first place is quite an accolade, isn't it?
And that's it. Actually, to get through the casting process was actually probably quite tough as well, because there's a lot. As Les said, we were told there was around 100 teams of 6 people, so 600 people applied to be on the show, and then they whittled that down, and then from that to get through to the last 4. I'm more than happy with that. I think
I don't envy their job doing that either. There must have been some real talent in there as well. So.
I guess and actually I think I heard somewhere that Team Grantham, the heat that they were in, was added in as extra when they changed the format slightly so that they could have more teams in. So they were actually one of the standby teams for the original format.
Oh, I see. Right.
So to actually get all the way through to the final, it shows that the quality of some of the people they probably had to turn down was very, very high. So,
and they're obviously not short of people for future seasons as well.
No. I think long may this continue, and I think that probably Series 3 is going to go to even bigger and greater heights. And in a way, I think we've had the easiest ride, because we're at the point where we've been able to think outside the box and produce some of these really wacky way out there layouts. But we're not up against the kind of competition that's probably going to be upping the game and upping the game.
It's just going to get hotter and hotter, isn't it?
As long as it doesn't frighten off people, newbies into the business, or those that think, I'd like to have a go at this, but I'm no good. That's not the idea. The idea is to bring in a team that's got a mixture. So you might have 2 or 3 of them that are excellent at one aspect, and you might have somebody that's only just started, but if they can work together as a team, that's the whole idea, and just to broaden the appeal to even more railway modellers.
I think it's something we discussed as well, even just for modellers at home. It just shows you how you don't have to always go by the traditional methods, and it can be a lot quicker and easier than you want it to be to get started in model railway. So hopefully for people at home who want to get started with their first layout as well, it'll be a bit of inspiration for them.
And also for like the very younger generation coming in, the children, the 5, 6, 7 year olds who want to get interested in it, then it's a case that they can realise that they can bring in other of their interests, you know, the Lego, the Meccano, the dinosaurs and spaceships or whatever, and they can create something that's fun to play with.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it's about. It might be a model railway, but at the end of the day, it's still a train set.
It's something to enjoy, isn't it? There's loads of different uses for them, like it's been shown on the show.
Yeah, and I think actually what probably comes across most out of the show is that actually all you need is a good imagination and confidence. Anybody can make those kind of things just if you're confident that you can do it, that you can get things done, and that it'll turn out just fine. And you know, there's actually quite a lot of flexibility when you make scenery. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it, because you can fix that. And as long as you tell yourself, don't worry, I can fix that, it's not a problem, then actually anybody can achieve those kind of results.
It's just a case of doing it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like we've said all along, Jenny was our sort of the mortar in the bricks and everything. The main thing was to make everything deliverable, not to have an idea that couldn't be delivered, to make sure that the track and the electrics worked and the trains didn't derail. I don't think we had any problems apart from the camera train that once. Everything worked, everything went round. It was a working model railway, working train set. So we're very proud to have achieved that, and we followed all the instructions to the very limit, and we pushed the boundaries as much as we could. Obviously, there's even more boundaries that can be pushed. But the ideas that the TV company came up with, you know, they were amazing, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't get to know about, apart from the initial one, the War of the Worlds, you don't really have much time to do anything in those 24 hours. And 24 hours is not even that, is it? Because you've pulled away.
There's like in the filming and silence in the studio, you can't hammer, you can't cut things. So there's a lot that eats into your time. Yeah. But I think, you know, in some respects, a lot of people have criticised some of the theme titles. But I think actually what the TV company did was genius, because it freed you from the rigidity of convention.
And it forces you to go for some different ideas.
We want you to make a model of a GWR layout in 1939 or whatever at 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Go away and do it. That wouldn't be boring as such for those that are interested in doing it, but
niche.
for TV, too niche. This has got to encompass a much wider spectrum.
And it'd likely be more difficult to do because it's so specific. You've got to do it exactly right, or it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked quite a bit about your layouts on the show, and there was some amazing layouts from the other teams there as well. So what did you think about the other contestants in the final?
I think they all did a great job. I think my particular favourite of the ones that were being built for that round was probably Team Grantham. I loved the way that they really went out there and kind of tried to make that roller coaster type model. And even though they struggled with getting it all to work, it was a very ambitious build. But the quality of their engineering was just second to none, and I really liked that.
Fantastic, like the guy that built the telescope, he built the
carousel.
Carousel. Seeing him building it, amazing, because it was all built from scratch.
I couldn't believe some of that
They
stuff.
have fantastic talent there, and I would agree with Jennifer. I think that's probably the layout that I liked the best that was there. But all of them were fantastic.
But I mean, in terms of the other layouts that we've not seen before, so for example, the semi-final layouts of Who's Counting Rivets and Railmen of Kent, I actually really like the Jurassic Park layout as well. And you know, when you actually sat and talked to the people who'd made it about some of the things they put in, there was again so much more there than was ever shown on TV.
Absolutely.
And it was like, that was such an amazing model as well, and the level of detail that went into that as well was great.
And I think, you know, probably some of the teams, I can't go into too much detail, but some of the teams had a better synergy within their group. We had a few issues in our group, but I can't say any more than that.
Fair enough. It's the way it goes anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
So looking back on your entire experience on the show across the whole series, what would you say about that?
I think it was great to do it. I mean, my philosophy in life is always take a chance and you won't be sorry for a might have been. So I think a lot of people are maybe a little bit scared and think, oh, what if I go on that and I just can't do it? Well, that's exactly how I was at the start. And I made myself do it. And I can remember being racked with this self-confidence issue. I thought, what if I get there and I'm just useless and I make a fool of myself and I can't deliver it? And I was so frightened of that, but actually having a great team around me, it really built my confidence.
I think I felt the same as well, because I mean, my model railway that I build, I make lots of mistakes, but I don't worry about it because I go back and I alter it and do things again, or I take things to pieces and do it differently. But when you're in a time constraint like that and you're going to be open to the public, you think, you know, are they going to think I'm no good at what I'm doing?
Yeah.
So it is a confidence thing. But again, because we had Jenny, we had Simon, had Marcy, I had Melanie. They were all good modelers and they had all their own sort of skill sets. So we were in good hands there.
Very eclectic team.
Yes.
Very much. And you know, we all kind of built each other up, because we, you know, where anybody was not feeling confident about something, there was always somebody on the team and go, actually, have you thought about doing this? Or, you know, that's great. There was the reassurance. But I think the single thing that I've taken away from that is the confidence to try new things. Yeah. And that's been reflected in my model railway at home, Weir Yard, in that I've actually applied a lot of the stuff that I learned. And it's, you know, I've learned more in 3 very, very intensive builds than I guess I have done in 20 years of railway modelling. And I think if you asked all the other teams, they'd probably say the same. It's like, you know, I would never have dreamt of trying X. And I tried it, and actually I found I was quite good at it.
Yeah.
And I think that is something really good to take away from the whole experience.
And it's like we said before, hopefully that's something that shines through from the TV to modelers at home as well.
Very much.
To crack on with your own builds as well.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
That's it. So obviously you were being pushed quite hard by the judges to get things done, and obviously by Tim and James as well. But what was your experience working with those guys?
They were fine. I mean, they don't always come across on the television. You know, they get a lot of stick for their corny remarks and everything, but that's the style of the show, the programme and everything. We never met the piano player though, did we?
No, the plinkety-plink music.
Or the nasally voice over the intercom as well.
I think that's actually Pat Doyle. I've been listening to that through the series, and I'm convinced that it's Pat Doyle, who's the series producer, holding his nose and talking like this. I am convinced. If you ever hear Pat Doyle talk,
ask him to hold his nose.
I know he's usually at Alexandra Palace because he gets interviewed on the MRC stand. But if you get to hear him, just listen and think, yeah, that is the guy.
Yeah. But no, they were great guys. You know, they did know what they were talking about, and the camaraderie and the fun that you don't see on the screen between the pair of them.
Yeah,
it's very, very good.
I mean, there's a lot that's obviously cut out for time, but I think there's a real chemistry between James and Tim, and they're great people to actually just sit and talk to. It's not like some famous people where they have this on-screen persona, and as soon as the cameras stop, they're like, "Oh, they're in my trailer." You know, they were actually great. You know, you could actually stand and have a conversation with them. And we went on the train ride with James, and it was great.
You can see the real people then.
And I mean, when they're standing there at the start of the shows, or even with the Scratch Build Challenge in a line, and they're having to say their lines, and the number of times they messed them up and had to do the retakes and just laughed it off and everything.
It's all part of the fun, isn't it? It's all part of the show.
Yeah.
So, great stuff. Well, anyway, so your War of the Worlds layout, of course, was managed to be saved from the show.
Yes.
And obviously, we've been lucky enough to take a really close look at that before on our YouTube channel, so if you check out our channel you can see more about that. But what's next for that one? Is that going to be at any shows?
It's booked into Alexandra Palace, the London Festival of Railway Modelling.
Oh, brilliant.
And now that the series has come to an end, we're hoping that maybe we'll get some more big exhibition invites, because I think a lot of the problem that all the teams have faced is that it's very difficult to book a layout into exhibitions when there's embargoes on what you can show of it. But now that the series is finished, I think people have seen the quality of all the builds, and some more invites will come in.
It's fair game for it now, isn't it? And of course you'll be able to see the winning layout from the show at the Whalley National Model Railway Exhibition this year as well.
And I think the Loco ladies as well will be at Whalley. They're the other layout that's been invited there. So you'll be able to see those crochet trees.
Oh, excellent. Everyone wanted to see those in real life, didn't they?
Yeah. It's very like Beatles, Magical Mystery Tour.
Very psychedelic, I thought that was.
Well, that could have been a good theme, to do something. Yellow Submarine, Beatles theme. That's the whole idea. That you
might be one for another season.
Well, yes.
Yeah, there's all ideas.
That's it. Well, of course, unfortunately, that is the end of the Great Model Railway Challenge for this year, but we do hope to see it come back in the future. As I've said, some of the layouts will be available to see out and about as well at Worley and the London Festival Railway Modelling and elsewhere as well. But I think that's about it for us today anyway. Just want to say thank you very much to Jenny and Les from Team Railriders for joining us on the show today. And we hope to see you next time. And do subscribe to our channel for more videos as well. We'll see you next time.